This is the brand new RC ERA A61, a very tiny helicopter that tries to be as easy to fly as possible. It makes the maneuvering easier, it makes the charging easier, requires no assembly, and it comes with everything you need to fly it in this box. Just like every other helicopter from RC ERA, like these two. So why should you care? Well, if it isn't for the looks, it should be the price. At $63, this is almost the cheapest helicopter RC ERA makes. It's currently $3 more than the A60, but I'd still say they are in the same category. Compared to the C138, you're saving $37, and for the price of this Huey, you could get 2 Airwolfs and an extra battery. So this could be a fantastic value, depending on how good it is. But that's why you're here. I have flown, tested and crashed this helicopter for quite a while now, and I have condensed all of my findings into this video. We're gonna talk about flying, quite a lot about the flying, and then the box, transmitter and batteries. My goal here is to give you all of the relevant information so that by the end of this video, you'll be able to make your own decision if this is a helicopter for you. Sounds good? Well, stick around. I think I'm starting to get the update. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. These 3 helicopters were all very kindly sent to me for free by Razordon to make videos like this one. I do have affiliate links to their store, but they have no say in the contents of this video, and all opinions are my own. This is the RC ERA A61, a 1/52nd scale RC Airwolf, a advanced supersonic stealth attack helicopter that can disguise itself as a civilian corporate helicopter. I haven't seen the show and I was not alive in 1984, but looking at these aerial shots I found, I think I'm starting to get the appeal. While the supersonic and guns part was made up, the Airwolf was actually a real helicopter. They took a Bell 222, added some cosmetic modifications and painted it black, and that's the helicopter you see on screen. This model here is known as the Red Wolf, the evil Airwolf twin. I thought this was the coolest looking one, but both color options are available. As it turns out, shrinking a helicopter 52 times, it becomes pretty damn small. It's roughly 28 centimeters long, has a rotor diameter of 232 millimeters, and it weighs only 55 grams with a battery. Inside the plastic body there's a 2.4 GHz receiver, 2 brushed motors, 2 servos, a gyro, barometer and optical flow sensor. Powering all of this are proprietary 1S 220 mAh LiPo batteries. We have now arrived at the most fun part of this video. The flying. I've been testing this helicopter indoors and outdoors, in cold and slightly less cold, and it all boils down to this. I'm gonna explain the general flying characteristics of RC ERA helicopters, why some A61s fall out of the sky, 2 things about the flight controller, some crashes I made, and also how this one actually compares to the other RC ERA helicopters I tried, so these 2. This is gonna take up the majority of this video, but you're buying a helicopter. If the flying sucks, the helicopter probably does so too. I'm pretty sure that the following description is correct for all RC ERA helicopters, but I've only flown these 3 and watched YouTube for the rest, so I'm like 85% sure. RC ERA makes 4-channel helicopters, which means that you control them with pitch, roll, yaw and throttle. To make them easy to fly, especially for beginners, there is a flight controller inside, which has 3 main functions: a angle limit, a auto hover and a altitude hold function, and I will now explain all 3 of them. The angle limit, as you might have guessed, limits the angle or attitude of the helicopter in flight, and it does this to prevent crashes. Let's say you move the right stick all the way forward. Well, the helicopter would start pitching forward, but at a certain angle, about 45 degrees, it won't let you pitch down anymore. And it does this to prevent you from getting into this situation, or maybe this situation. Because if you find yourself here, the helicopter is either falling to the ground or actively flying into it. So being unable to get into these situations, well, it makes the helicopter harder to crash, and that's a good thing. Next we have auto hovering. If the helicopter is flying and you provide no inputs, so hands off the sticks, it will try its very best to keep the position and altitude by itself. The gyro keeps it upright, the barometer keeps the altitude, and the downwards facing camera or optical flow sensor tries to look at the ground and keep the helicopter in the same spot. If you're flying, it does nothing, but if you ever let go of the sticks, it will try its very best to hover in place. Lastly, the altitude hold. On RC ERA helicopters, the throttle is not fully manual, but rather center sprung. When left in the center position, the helicopter tries to hold a constant altitude using the barometer. Throttle up to climb, throttle down to descend, but as soon as it's back in the center, the helicopter tries its very best to hold altitude for you. You can think of this flight controller as a tiny co-pilot. It helps you maintain altitude. If you take your hands off the stick, it will try to hover the helicopter until you're back, and if you ever try to fly the helicopter too aggressively, it will try to stop you. So how does this work for our little Airwolf? Well, pretty good, I'd say. The angle limit works as expected, and the auto hovering and altitude hold work well overall. It's not perfect though, there can be some drift in the helicopter's position. Sometimes the optical flow sensor gets a good lock and the helicopter just parks in the air, and sometimes it just slowly drifts away. You can counteract this with trim though. The altitude hold works the majority of the time, but you may need a little up or down to keep the altitude over an entire flight. Both of these things are not really an issue though, as long as you're flying in an open space. There you have plenty of time to make corrections, and you can always hit the landing button if it gets too much. This was only really a problem when I was flying in a small room and I was constantly trying to not fly into the walls. Next, we need to talk about catastrophic crashes. Don't ask me why, but I've been watching German and Spanish reviews of this helicopter. Not that I know much Spanish or German. Hola! Kartoffel, por favor. I rely pretty heavily on subtitles. In these videos, the helicopter just falls out of the sky. Vamos a bajarlo un poco. Bueno. This looks very bad. I have flown this helicopter quite a lot, and although it can get a little unstable sometimes, mine has never fallen out of the sky. So what's going on here? Well, I have a theory. In the video by der RC-Papst, Entschuldigung, he says that he felt a slight breeze every time the helicopter fell to the ground. So could it be the wind? Well, I went back to the other two videos. The Spanish guy definitely had some wind going on, and while it's hard to know for sure, there is movement in the grass for this guy, so there's probably some wind there too. I have only really flown this helicopter indoors or in really calm weather, so this could be our answer. So do these helicopters do the same thing? Well, there's no good way for me to test this, but probably yes. You just need more wind. The A61 is actually not that much smaller than the C-138 and C-032 in size. Still, these two weigh 2 times as much. They have stronger motors, collective pitch, and probably better servos as well. So the A61 should be more affected by wind. Actually quite a lot more affected by the wind. What I think is happening here is that the wind pushes the helicopter to such an extreme attitude that the flight controller can't recover. And at these angles you lose lift, and thus the helicopter starts falling down. So it sucks then? No. The same way as my PT-17 here would be sent to space and back in a light breeze, this is a micro helicopter. Fly it indoors or in calm weather, and it's going to be great. I have 2 things to add about the flight controller. Sometimes there's a delay when I want to descend. I pull the stick down, but then there's nothing for a second or so, and then the helicopter starts descending. I learned this the hard way when I was flying indoors a bit close to the ceiling and I couldn't react fast enough. I hit the ceiling and then I spun around in the ceiling and then I finally got stuck in the ceiling. Lesson learned, don't fly in small rooms, and if you do, don't fly too close to the ceiling. Have a bit of margin. However, I don't think this would ever be a problem as long as you're flying this helicopter in an open space. I wouldn't recommend flying in a small room like this unless you really know what you're doing. Secondly, landing this helicopter can be a little tricky sometimes. The throttle is center sprung, so how do you turn off the motor? Well, you're supposed to hold down the throttle stick for a couple seconds or so, and then the motor turns off. But let's say you're landing on a hard surface, like this table. There's no friction, so you have to constantly give some input on the right stick to hold the helicopter steady over the landing spot. Well, in that case, the motor might never stop. It wants you to center the right stick first, but you can't because you will slide off the table. So what I do is that I take an extra finger and hold down the takeoff and land button for a second or two. This stops the motor no matter what, and the helicopter usually comes to stop with a little spin. This happens sometimes and it's a bit annoying, but remember this trick. Oh, and quickly about crashes. I've crashed into grass, into a couch, into a chair, and into the ceiling. I have scratched the blades quite a lot, and the fin part of the tail is now skewed. Still, everything works just like new. I'm still entirely convinced that if you crash this thing hard enough, it will break into 1,000 pieces. Helicopters aren't really known for their durability, but still, I think it looks more fragile than it really is. Also, a quick PSA. If you install the little wings and put the helicopter back in the box, do not put on the plastic and close the box. This will deform the helicopter and your left wing might never be straight again. It hurts my soul every time I look at it, so please, don't be like me. What I think is special about this helicopter is the fact that it's so affordable compared to all of the other RCR helicopters, except for one. Which begs the question, how does it compare to the bigger and more expensive models? Well, here I have the $100 C138 and also the CO32, which costs 2 Airwolves and an extra battery, so $133. Are these actually better? Well, the sad truth is that they are. The bigger and more expensive helicopters do fly better. Both of these are 2S, so double the power. They have collected pitch, they weigh more, the transmitters are better, and there's probably some better servos in here as well. The A61 is more easily affected by wind. It has much worse throttle response and it feels a little twitchy and unstable compared to the bigger and heavier and expensive compared to these bigger and more expensive helicopters. So it sucks then, right? No, no it doesn't. Comparing it to more expensive helicopters isn't really fair. I mean, they should be better. 1S versus 2S, fixed pitch versus collected pitch, brushed versus brushless, and 55 grams versus 105 or 115 grams. Buying more expensive helicopters does give you better hardware, and that usually means better flying. To continue with my plane analogies, it's like comparing this T28 to a 1.5 meter E-flite Timber. Of course the Timber is gonna fly better, but that doesn't mean that this thing is bad per se. In fact, this might be even better for a beginner, even though it flies worse. As long as you're flying this helicopter in an open space with no wind, I believe this could be a great helicopter to learn the basics. For what this is, a affordable and easy to fly helicopter, I think it's great. This could be a fantastic first helicopter for someone that wants to start flying RC helicopters. Sure, you might outgrow this helicopter and there are better flying models, but you have to start somewhere. And maybe it's a tiny Airwolf. I think that wraps up the flying. Now let's quickly go over the other necessary things you should know that are a bit less exciting. So the box, the batteries and the transmitter. This is the box for the RC ERA A61. Opening up the box, we have the manual for the helicopter, this paper. On the plastic here we have these fins. There are the small side fins to the helicopter, USB-C to USB-A charging cable, and a spare tail rotor, as well as some tools. Lifting up the plastic, here we have the star of the show, the A61. Here's the included transmitter. Then there's as many batteries as you order. You can choose between 1, 2 and 3. I chose 2. And finally we have some spare main rotor blades. I actually find these boxes great for just transporting and storing the helicopters, but just remember, don't be like me. Remove the fins before you put on the plastic so you don't bend anything. The batteries are these 1S 220 mAh LiPos in a plastic case. They have a USB-C port for charging and some pins for the helicopter. These are proprietary, which means that you have to buy RC ERA batteries. Additionally, these only fit the A61. It's a good thing that they don't fit in the 2S Helis, because that wouldn't be any good, but even the A60, which is very similar to the A61, has its own batteries. But I believe it's the same battery, it's just different plastic, so it's... I have started to like these batteries though. Although it might seem a little bit weird for RC, USB-C is great. With other small batteries, I have to wonder if it's this charger or if it's this charger. Turns out it's none of them. And then there's this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and then these two. And why does this battery and this charger have the same connection? But with these, I just find the USB-C cable anywhere, and it just works. If I want to charge every single battery I have, well, I just find a bunch of USB-C cables. It's great. Once plugged in, a red LED lights up. Once it goes out, the battery is fully charged. While flying, you should see a solid red LED on the helicopter. Once the battery voltage gets low, it starts blinking slowly, and this is when you land. If you accidentally put in a battery that is not charged, you will either get a short flight or a rapid flashing LED right away. This means that the battery has too low of a voltage to be flying. Finally, let's talk about the transmitter. This is what the included transmitter looks like. There is a power button, 2 sticks, trim switches for the 2 sticks. We have a speed selector that has 3 positions, and this takeoff and landing button. It's powered by 4 AA batteries that are not included in the box. I like this transmitter. Sure, it's made out of plastic, but it looks nice, it feels solid, and I like the way it sits in my hands. Compared to the other plastic radios I have, I think this is one of the best. With that being said, in the RC ERA lineup, this is the cheapest transmitter they offer. There is a version with upgraded sticks that I got with the C138, and then the grey transmitter that comes with the higher end models like the CO32. And yes, the A61's transmitter does have worse feeling sticks, and the potentiometers probably have worse resolution. There's also no way to height adjust the sticks, and there are no clear corners. But is this really surprising? I mean, if you compare the grey one to my NX6, I prefer my NX6, and if you buy one of those fancy Radio Masters, it's probably gonna be even better. This is a budget helicopter, and I think this transmitter is good enough. While on the topic of transmitters, I also want to show you a secret trick that also applies to other RC ERA transmitters. If the helicopter is bound, so solid light, you can hold down the left trim until the radio beeps and starts blinking. You have now arrived in the secret menu. Doing this disables the optical flow camera, and on collective pitch helicopters you can change something known as the head speed with the rudder trim. But this does not apply to the A61. While in this mode, any trim on the right will get saved to the helicopter and stay the same for every following flight if you don't change it. You can use this either if you suspect that your optical flow sensor is getting confused and you'd rather fly without it, or to do trim adjustments that get saved. Use it at your own risk though. This is not included in the manual, and I've just seen people on YouTube doing this. But still, now you know. We have talked about the flying quite a lot, and the other stuff. Now it's time for you to make up your mind. Personally, I think the A61 could be a great first helicopter. The fact that everything is made so easy and that you get everything you need in the box is great. But it is important to know what you're buying. This is a very affordable helicopter aimed at beginners. It's not the best flyer, the more expensive helicopters do fly better, but for the price, for learning the basics and for getting started, I think it's great. If you want to check out the RC ERA A61, I will leave an affiliate link to Razordawn's website in the video description. And also, if you thought that this helicopter, the C138, was cool, well, I've made a whole video about this one, which I thought turned out really great. So now you know what to do after this video. As you might have guessed, I'm having a blast playing around with these helicopters. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and good night.